All right, y'all, I'm gonna do a quick little video talking about how I make compost during the dry season here in Southwest Florida. It's mid-December right now, and the effects of the dry season I'm starting to notice the effects of the dry season for sure. The grass is starting to get a little brown. Every time I handle mulch, it's so super dusty. So that's those kinds of signs give me, those kinds of things give me the signal that it's time to switch up my compost plan. Because what I usually do during the rainy season is that I just make these huge berms of mulch, and whenever I have compost kitchen scraps to dispose of, well, the huge berms are targeted specifically to the bananas, so it's my intention to feed the bananas every time I compost. So every time I have food scraps, I'll dig in somewhat deep into this huge berm of wood chips and mulch, and deposit it into there. And then I don't really worry about watering it or moisture retention much, because it's the rainy season. We get lots of rain, and the banana roots really help with decomposition as well, and they're very heavy feeders, which is why I focus on them. Because their feeder roots help decomposition, A, and then B, because they're actually very hungry all the time. So might as well give the food to them. But now that it's the dry season, I kind of have to switch up my tactics a little bit and take a page out of Brad Lancaster's book, and start to focus my energy on places where they're recessed. Like here, this was a low spot on the property. Already there was like a little divot there, and I have another one here. So just as an example, I frequently show these compost pits in my videos, but I haven't really gone in depth about them. This is another one, so you can see the Napier grass is around it, helping to shelter it. And then in this case, it's the Mexican sunflower and other plants that are around it. So you can see. Well, I'll show you in a bit. I just get to this point. So this was already a low spot, and so was that other one. So I kind of just dug it out more and accentuated its lowness and made a pit out of it. And then that dirt, I kind of just spread around it and made a planting space out of it, made beds out of it. So all around this composting hole, there's plants that also help with the decomposition process. You can see here the Mexican sunflower, they just dig right into it while it's decomposing, and it helps sort of structure. Like if I tear this soil off of the roots, it's a key part of decomposition that I think gets overlooked when making just traditional compost somewhere else in a fancy box and adding things and having to turn it. Plant roots aid in decomposition so much, and it would behoove you to incorporate plants around your composting setup, because they help speed up the process, and obviously they benefit from it. So you can see the jack beans here are still so lush and green, because they have that bit of moisture retention and all that nutrient excess that's over there. And then these jack beans are starting to feel the damage of the dry season, especially it's on the edge right here where it gets that western that western sun just fries these leaves. So you can having plant roots part of your decomposition process is super important. So now that it's the dry season, I focus my composting setup to locations that are close to my house. So both of these pits are very close to my house, so I can water them frequently. I don't have the rain to do all the watering for me. And another key part of decomposition is moisture. That's why a lot of people that live in like more arid climates, it's more efficient and much easier to have animals be your source of fertilizer, because it would take so much. It's an uphill battle to try to make conventional, just like compost in very, very dry conditions. So if you have chickens, that'll just kind of do it for you. It's much better bang for your buck in super dry places. But the most you can do in very dry circumstances is retain that moisture. So I'm close to my house, so I can irrigate on a more regular basis. I come here and just spot water whenever I feel like it needs more water. Every time, sort of pretty much every time I get kitchen scraps and I add them, I'll go ahead and just water them. So I'm gonna put the kitchen scraps. So I dug out the remaining like half-finished compost. That's you can already see it's drier than it usually is, considering this is a very sheltered location from the sun, and it's a hole, so there's a lot of moisture retention. It's still starting to dry out, and you can only do so much before Mother Nature just desiccates things. So I have this stuff, and this is sort of like a starter for the kitchen scraps. Once they go in, this is like a SCOBY, or like anything that, like a sourdough starter or whatever, anything that will help the biological processes advance quicker helps. So this is exactly that. So I'll put the kitchen scraps in, put this stuff on top of it, and then put tons of before I put the wood chips on, another bioaccelerator is urine. So I collect all my pee, a very valuable resource. If you're not doing so already, guys, it's very easy for us to do it. So if we're not doing it already, then you're missing out on a very, 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 very valuable resource that goes a long, long way, because we always pee all the time. So why not use it? And then I'll put the wood chips on top, and then I'll water it in. So I'm gonna do all that, and then I'll show you guys what it looks like, and once it's all done. So another benefit of having plants grow around your composting setup is that you can directly add them to the pile. So I got the kitchen scraps down below, and the compost that was left over, and now I'm putting this on, and I already scattered the pee on it. So this, especially things like Mexican sunflower that are more nitrogenous than they are carbon, it's another thing that'll just help accelerate the processes of decomposition, because this stuff literally just melts into delicious goodness for the microorganisms. But yeah, that's just a quick little note. So that's about it. I'm pretty liberal with the mulch, the amount of mulch I put in, because I know I'm gonna keep adding to this pile. So kind of just go. I could have gone a lot heavier on the mulch, but I'm just gonna, every time I take out kitchen scraps, I'll just add another layer of mulch. Another thing I wanted to mention was I don't follow any composting rules. Everything that can decompose, I put in there. I don't care if there's some plastic wraps and things like that, or bones. And one thing they'll say, people will say that bones attract critters, and it's true. A lot of like grease and bones and stuff do attract critters. But because I always work, everything I do involves massive amounts of wood chips, and I'll just, if I know that's a night where we, have a lot of bones in the kitchen scraps, then I'll make sure to pile the mulch on even thicker so that it'll deter animals. And even then, raccoons or whatever will dig through all that mulch every now and then, but it's honestly like the tiniest deal. So that's about it. The mulch is done, and now I set the precedent that this will be my composting spot for the rainy season. And it'll get overloaded, and then I'll go ahead and transfer to the next one. Between the two, I get a good sort of routine, a little rhythm going, and I'm able to do away with my kitchen scraps. And if it ends up being too much, because sometimes it just gets too much, decomposition's not happening fast enough, and I have too much kitchen scraps, then I'll go ahead and just keep feeding the bananas that are close to my house so that I can make sure they're watered. And another thing I wanted to say is that sometimes I oftentimes add mushroom block substrate, spent mushroom blocks to this, and that's a game changer. That'll make your compost just disintegrate because the millipedes love those mushroom blocks, and millipedes are really good decomposers for drier times of year and arid climates. And so they'll go to town. They're not as picky as worms. So especially here for Southwest Florida where we have sand, millipedes are our primary decomposers, and they'll just go to town on that stuff. So that's a big key of my mushroom as well. I mean, my compost is having mushroom substrate, mushroom blocks. But yeah, that's about it. And this particular compost ring has a banana growing out of it. Tons of jack beans. Obviously, I'm always trying to get more jack bean genetics into this world. There's a couple trees as well. This is a China berry and a money tree, or the French peanut, or I forget what it's called. Everyone knows it as a money tree though. Beautiful tree. But anyways, that's what I like to do during the dry season. Having a pit helps retain moisture. Having it close to my house helps me to water it all the time, because it's easier for me to water things that are close to my house. And having the plants all around it helps it be shaded, so the water that you do put on it stays there. It doesn't just evaporate 10 seconds later. And the roots also help with decomposition, and you can utilize that foliage that grows so abundantly green because it's getting pumped with nutrients all the time. You can feed that right back in. So that's kind of what I opt for during the dry season. So a little long-winded there, but I felt like it's nice to explain the reasonings behind things. So yeah, that's all. All right, so I just want to add one more thing to this video. I went out to my friend Russell's place, who owns Care to Grow mushrooms here in Naples, Florida, and it's where I get all my mushroom blocks. So I was talking about using the mushroom blocks to accelerate the compost production, and here it is in action. So you can see most of these still have mushrooms, flushing on the blocks. And so the millipedes just love this stuff. It's crazy to see the amount of millipedes that just start breaking this stuff down and start eating it. It's insane. I've never seen anything like it in my entire life. So now I have this a beautiful material that gets broken down. I'm gonna water it, and I put my kitchen scraps underneath all of this and even add more mulch on top. So it's just a recipe for success. And during the dry season, you want to get that millipede population up because they can handle the dry conditions. And these mushroom blocks, if you have someone in your community that does mushrooms and utilizes these substrate blocks, then make them your best friend, because this translates into amazing, beautiful, rich compost. And actually, good timing, because I actually also picked up at Russell's place. So at Russell's place, he has a pile where the mushroom blocks have been decomposing themselves over time, and you can see just how rich this stuff is. So I could also add this to the pile to kind of get things moving along even faster, but I'm probably going to utilize this for potting medium and other things. So yeah, mushroom operations produce an amazing amount of compost after their blocks have produced mushrooms, and then they can't produce any more than a couple of times before it's too inefficient for the grower. So one man's trash is another man's treasure. Look at that beautiful stuff. But anyways, I figured I'd add this little part on so that y'all can see the richness that I'm talking about.